Hello, this is Dave Wood. How y'all doing? This is going to be like a random live tonight. I have no plan, but I wanted to pop on here on my phone. I wanted to say hello, and I wanted to share some thoughts that I have in my mind that I think these things have the ability to help you in a lot of ways that I wish that I was maybe more aware of earlier in my life, as it would have benefited me a lot, like in a lot of different ways. I would probably be, if I would have known some of the stuff. Hold on a second here. What the heck is this? It's like recommending me comments or something. Did I write those comments? I don't know if I wrote those comments. Yeah, but, tell me something that you want to see in my videos and in the video today as well, if you are on or if you pop on a little bit later on, that you would like to see me talk about. And I'm happy to help you out with that as well. But what I want to do today is I want to talk about how to have amazing people in your life, right? How to build a life that has the kind of people in your life that you want to have in your life. And at the same time as getting the right people, hello, good to see you, man. At the same time of getting the right people into your life, you also want to get the people that you don't want to have in your life away from you, right? So there's a two-part process here, right? Like, how do you attract the right people that you do want to have in your life? And then how do you take the people that you don't want to have in your life, and how do you get those people away somehow so they can't negatively impact you? And again, this is really, it's more than two parts, but today, for the sake of this video, we're going to define this into a two-part process. And this can radically impact you. And how could it impact you? Well, I mean, they say that you are the average of the 5 people that you associate with the most, right? So if you take out, for example, you go to the 5 closest people to you, and you take you tally up their incomes, right? And you divide that by 5, most of the time, you're going to come up with around what your income is usually it's within 10 or 20%, right? So if the people around you are making, for example, $5,000 a month, if your 5 closest people are making $5,000 a month, eventually you're going to either pull them down or they're going to pull you up to their level, right, of income. So, hey, what's up, Tina? Good to see you, right? And so you're average the 5 people that you're around. So you want to have the right people around you, and you want to get the wrong people away from you, right? And especially if you're just getting started in life, it can be difficult to notice both groups. Hold on a second. Let me just see if I'm on the right internet connection. I think that I am. Let me know, by the way, if my internet connection is not going through or something like that, because it keeps warning me about a slow one. So let's define this a little bit. Let's talk about who you really want to have in your life. Who you really want to have in your life are people that reflect in some way the life that you want, right? They're the kind of people that you would want to invite around your kids. They're the kind of people that you would feel safe leaving them in your house with your friends, and you don't feel like you have to watch over them, for example. Like, I think everybody watching this, you would think about this and you'd say, okay, I wouldn't invite a felon that was just in jail for 3 years for robbing a liquor store. I don't even know how long you'd go to jail for something like that. But I'm going to invite a felon into my house, and while he's in the house, I'm going to have my kids playing right in front of him. And while he's there, I'm going to go to the park by myself, and I'll just leave him there with the kids, right? I think that everybody who watches this video, you probably want to do something like that. You might, if he was your friend from high school and kind of got lost, you might go meet him over coffee, but you probably wouldn't invite him into a house full of kids. And that's not to criticize ex-felons and people that radically changed their lives and everything like that. It's just not something that you would do. There's certain things that intuitively, that's not a good idea, and I don't want that kind of person around the people that I know. And so you've got to guard yourself, and you also got to guard the people that you know. Because also another thing you can do is, if you bring the wrong people around people that you know that are good, what you can do inadvertently, without intending it, is you can actually chase away the good people that you know by bringing people that they don't want to be around in their circle. So if you take bad people and you bring them into the circle, the bad people that you bring in doesn't just affect you, it also affects everyone else around the circle, and maybe the other smart people in your circle don't want to be around that person because that person shouldn't be there, and so they distance themselves from you in order to distance themselves from the people that you're bringing around. Does that make sense? So I think that's something that's important to note, is that you've got to not only protect your own circle, you also have got, like, by the people that are close to you, you got to protect the people that are close to you from other people that shouldn't be there, right? And if you don't do that, the good people around you, they're going to go somewhere else, right? So what are some things that you want to, let's talk about like what you want to really avoid being around. Okay, and let's just lay down some just universals, because I think everybody's going to be specific in the particularities, but we'll talk about the universals in the sense that these are things that are just generally good to avoid contact with, right? Who would that be? The dark triad, right? The dark triad, right? So let's talk about the dark triad for a second. Dark triad would be like sociopaths, psychopaths, what else do you have in narcissists? Right? So sociopaths, psychopaths, and narcissists. Now, I don't want to knock anybody watching this if you've got some sort of thing that you struggle with. By the way, if you're watching this and you're like, hey, I kind of struggle with this. But you actually are working on perhaps your own dark, elements. So maybe you're not necessarily a dark sociopath, because there's sociopaths that are biological sociopaths. Then there's sociopaths that are dark. So I'm talking about the dark triad, right? People that exercise abusive behavior in the manner of their communication, like they're overly controlling, they gaslight you, you know what I mean? You say something and then they twist it, or they say something and you point it out and then they try to twist it and then make it look like what you pointed out is their fault, right? They lie and then cover it up and things like this, right? Like they'll lie, they won't just lie, but they'll lie right to your face and be really convincing, and you know they're lying to you, right? Just in general, if people are engaging in this kind of behavior, you don't want that kind of person to be around you for a long time. Like, for example, if you meet somebody and you see them chronically lying to everybody around themselves, right? Like you notice it, like early on in the relationship, you just notice that to a particular group of people, this person tends to be dishonest. And actually, you'll see this a lot of times with marketers, for example. You'll see them segment who it's okay to lie to and who it's okay to be honest to for their own self-gain, right? Like, I'll be honest with that group over there because that's like my boys, you know what I mean? But that person, it doesn't matter if I'm dishonest to them because that's just, money or whatever, right? So like they segment, it's okay to be honest over there, but it's not okay to be, it's okay, I got to be honest here, but it's okay to be dishonest over there. If you ever meet a person like that, they will lie to your face as well, just like they're lying to that other group if it's in their advantage to lie to their face, to your face. So in other words, if they find it advantageous, in other words, they're this time going to take advantage of you because there's something to get, they will flip whatever behavior you dislike that they were doing on something else, and they'll flip that same behavior against you the moment they can get 50 more cents from it than they could if they don't do it. So you want to be really careful with things like this. Just in your life, when you're bringing people around, you want to bring honest people around yourself, people that tell the truth to the best of their ability in every situation. And if they don't, they try to fix it, because let's just face it, there's very few perfect people in the world, right? Sometimes people under pressure will tell like a little white lie, but then they'll correct it. That's different than what I'm talking about. I'm talking about purposeful, overt manipulation for money grubbing, for power. These people are not good people to be around. You don't want to spend your life building relationships with people who put money over people, right? There's something wrong with them. When you get, and here's the thing that you kind of got to arrive at a point in your life. If you get to a point in your life where you have an intuition about someone, and there's something inside of you, and it says very clearly, like, I don't think it's a very good idea to get very close to this particular person, right? That probably has happened to you at some point or another in your life. I know that that's happened to me multiple times in my own life, where I've met someone and I've been like, this person, they just said something that's really not okay, right? Like they just said, and then you watch them and you kind of hang around, and then 20 minutes later, or 2 days later, or 4 days later, they say something again, and it's not something that's okay. You know what I mean? It's like something under the breath about a violent tendency, or about, laughing about something that's not very funny. For example, like something happens, or you describe something that happened in history that's kind of grotesque, and then that thing is not very funny, but the person laughs and they really think that it's funny. They get kind of a rise out of it, right? That is a warning signal. It's a warning signal that this person thinks things are funny that really aren't. You know what I mean? That shouldn't be funny to anybody. You know what I mean? And I could give some examples of that, but I might give some examples of that a little bit later on from some things that have happened. But I don't want to bring this on anybody that might at some point watch this video, to leave it just ambiguous. And the reason is because I don't want to hurt anybody with anything that I say. So there's also the case that I do believe people can change, right? I believe anybody watching this video, you can change anything that you really desire to change. But the thing to realize is that you're not responsible for changing other people. You're only responsible for changing yourself. So if you're doing something and you don't like what you see in the mirror, you don't like what you're doing, right? You can change yourself. That's easy to do. But changing somebody other than yourself, well, that might be useful if you're helping them, if they're asking and you have the power to help, right? That's something that's different than trying to help somebody change who doesn't want to change. If you try to help someone change and they don't want to change, it's called an impossible task. You can't, right? And sometimes in life, giving that up is the best thing that you can do. Like letting go of the attachment to trying to need to help someone else to be a good person so their life can be better and they can get better results in their life, right? If you let go of that attachment and you allow people to be who they are, right? That's a better way to be. But you don't need them to be who they are around you. It's okay if you need to in your life to totally remove somebody from your sphere of influence, to never introduce them to any of your friends again, and to just, not talk to that person anymore. I used to not think that, but I saw, I used to have a problem a long time ago with setting boundaries. I didn't know how to do it. And I think the reason I didn't know how to do it in the past was because I grew up in a family where my family was just so safe to be around. When I was a kid, growing up, I never was around any abuse, right? I never saw abuse. I mean, my dad didn't abuse my mom. My mom didn't abuse my dad, right? There was no negative people that were ever in my house. We never had a babysitter abuse anyone in the family, right? My dad's friends were all upright people that followed the laws and were honest, right? And so I think one of the things that happened, and you probably have had a different experience in that. I've talked to a lot of people about my childhood. I've talked to psychologists and stuff about it. I've talked to friends about it. I've talked to people that I've known in various circles about it. And still to this day, I don't really know anybody that had a better home and a better childhood than I did. I grew up in just an amazing environment. My parents were not abusive. I never saw my mom argue with my dad ever in my life, like angrily, right? So that's a very normal thing for a woman to get angry, right? But I literally never saw my mom. My parents have been married for 50 years now. I never saw my mom in 40 years, right? I never saw my mom in 40 years, a single time, once, get angry and yell at my dad. Never in my life, right? So what happened because of that, and some of my friends who've known me for a while know this, right? What happened because of that is there was some really positive effects. It made me very loving and kind towards others, but I also spent some amount of time in my adult life maybe being a little bit naive, right? In the sense that I just thought that's how people were, right? And so I thought, meeting new people, that people were just going to be honest with me and do the right thing to the best of their ability. And that's not how some people are, for whatever reason. And I like how Jen Rohn approaches this. He says, why are some people liars? And then he says, well, that's what liars do. That's how it is. Don't question how it is. Don't fight how it is. That's what liars do. Why are they liars? Because they lie. They're liars. That's why. There's no reason for it. There's no explanation for it, right? And so you can really beat yourself up if you've not been around dark people. Then all of a sudden you begin to meet them and think that you're causing it or think it's your fault. But no, that's how you respond with a normal person, right? And that's not how you respond with somebody who is a dark triad personality and is causing damage on purpose. So there's been, this is one part, which is we want to develop the ability and the insight in order to be wise with our circle of influence, right? And only have people in the circle of influence that are going to build the other people in the circle of influence up. That's the only people that we want around. Now, if we run into other people because we're being social and everything, that's fine. But as far as bringing somebody into your inner circle, you only want people in your inner circle, right, that are going to be a positive impact on all of the people that you know. So you've spent years investing into these relationships, investing into professionals, investing into people that love other people. You don't want to take somebody that is going to say damaging things and do damaging things in your sphere. So that's part of it. Then the other part that I mentioned a little bit earlier on was bringing people around you that you really want to have around, right? Which is what? This is people that are going to make you feel good about yourself. But at the same time as making you feel good about yourself, they're not just going to make you feel good to feel good. If they need to tell you something strong because you're out of line, they're going to tell you, right? Like they're going to tell you to follow the laws. They're going to tell you to be honest. They're going to tell you that you need to change something about your personality or something, not maybe your core personality, but they're going to tell you something that you need to change that's damaging yourself and others. They'll tell you, right? So if you have some sort of addiction issue, these are the kinds of people that are going to come to you and they're going to tell you, hey, you have a really bad issue, right? And so you want people around you that, yes, they make you feel good, but they're also strong and they have rules about how they conduct their behavior, because those people are going to give a more positive experience and a more uplifting experience to everybody else in your circle. And the more you take care of your circle, the more your circle is going to take care of you. The more you nurture your relationships in your inner circle, the more the relationships in your inner circle are going to nurture you. And that's why you got to be careful with who you get close to. You got to be careful because you only want the right people around, and you want the wrong people, you want them out, right? So I've had some experiences in my life where multiple times I've had people, for example, that have worked for me, and I knew I should have, like I had a thing where that person was doing something that wasn't okay, you know what I mean? Like their behavior, they had some behavior that was maybe a little bit abusive, and then that a little bit of abusive behavior turned much more abusive as time went by, right? Or they said things, and the things that they said, they just weren't okay. Or I noticed some abuse patterns. Like abuse patterns I mentioned earlier were things like gaslighting. And really what I should have done with those people every time, because there's been several of them, is every time I had a person like that around, the very first time I saw them engage in the abusive behavior, I should have, first of all, if it was hurting somebody, kind of changed the subject and maybe moved them aside. But then there should have been one conversation, right? A single conversation. And that conversation should have been something along the lines of like, hey, look, I know you're trying to add value here, like we talked about earlier, but I just saw you doing something that's not okay. And here's what it was. So why don't you tell me what you think about that, and let's have a discussion about it. And the conversation should have ended with something along the lines of, just so you know, we don't do that here. And if you ever do anything like that again a single time, you're out. Right? And if they're willing to work with the rules because they've never been around a strong culture before, then they could stay. But if they did it a single other time, the only other conversation that should have ever been with that person is, you're fired, get out. Right? Really, and I mean it just like that. Because the reality is that you want people to be around you that are productive, that are moving on, that have great ideas, that work hard, that are willing to follow through on what it is that they say they're going to do to the best of their ability. And when they don't, they acknowledge it, they fix whatever went wrong, and then in the future, they change. Right? And if they need to make something up to people, they do their best to make it up to people. Those kind of people, they're good to be around. Right? So you want to, again, get the people around you that are good to be around, and you want to get people away from you and away from the people that you know as quickly as you possibly can if they won't immediately change. And this is why I say with certain things somebody's got to immediately change, right? They got to immediately change. You can't let it drag on through 6 months of psychotherapy and you're trying to help this person change themselves but they don't want to change. Here's why, right? Because if they don't immediately change whatever it is that they're doing, the very first time that you ask, especially with abusive behavior, they're probably doing it on purpose, for power, for money, to manipulate, to get what they want, and they probably have become accustomed to doing that over a very long period of their life as a strategy of getting what they want, and they believe that it works for them and they don't want to change it. And if they tell you that they want to change it but then they don't, it's because they probably don't want to change. That's number one. But number two is that if you have somebody malicious around, they really can hurt a lot of people, including you. A lot, right? So this is just education on life. Is you want to bring people around yourself that you want to have in your circle, that you're okay bringing around your kids, that you want to have around your family, that you would be okay leaving them in a room with other people that you like and trust, right? Because this person is going to uplift them, they're going to be honest with them, and they're going to create win-win situations, right? Like, I have a lot of people in my life that are just fantastic people, you know what I mean, that have been in my life for 10 years, 15 years, 5 years, right? And they're fantastic. And I've had some other people that have come into my life, sometimes for elongated periods, and then they've gone. Or I've gotten them out of my life. Or I've said, you can't have anything to do with my life anymore, right? I've had a lot of people like that. Hey, what's up, Paulina? Good to see you, right? And Paulina, you're a fantastic person that I've known for a while, right? And so you want to, again, build people into your circle of influence that you trust. Do you trust that person around your kids, or would you feel like you have to watch them all the time? That's an example, right? Would you trust that person around your kids, or would you have to watch everything that they do? If you have to watch everything that they do around your kids, you don't want them around anybody you know. Nobody, right? Would you be okay with that person talking to your wife or your husband without you there, right? If the answer is no, what's the point of having them around at all, right? Now, you probably don't want to leave your wife or husband alone with people that you just met anyways, but you get my point, right? Get people around yourself that are going to build you up, right? That are going to speak directly to you, that are going to tell you when you're out of line, and get people away from yourself and the people that you love who are dark triad personalities, right? Hey, what's up, Paulina? Yeah, it's a good topic, isn't it? Paulina, you want to pop on and talk to people, talk with me about it? You can pop on. Just let me know in the comments. I won't bring you out unless you ask. But you can pop on. I think I can click a button and bring you on. Right? So in any case, yeah. So this is something really valuable to me. And I went through a lot of period in my life where a lot of points in my life where I've been told things like this by people that were good people, that were trying to protect me from people that were not good people. But at that time in my life, I was too naive to just listen, and too naive to just say, yeah, okay, I'm going to trust you on this one, right? And then I didn't listen. And I continued believing in someone that really didn't deserve me to believe in them. They deserved to either be fired or eliminated entirely from my circle of influence with no chance of coming back, right? And there's people that are like that. I'm very forgiving, right? Are you forgiving? Look, I think being forgiving is so important. I think you should forgive people even if they don't apologize. I think you should forgive people even if they don't make it up to you. I think you should forgive people not for them. I think you should forgive people for you. Because holding on to anger and holding on to resentment, it's like holding a hot coal in your hand and waiting for your enemy to get burned. You're not burning your enemy. You're only burning yourself. So hating somebody is not useful. Not ever is it useful to continue hating somebody for the rest of your life, right? Yeah, it's not useful. Forgive them, right? Forgive them, right? Even Jesus, when he was on the cross, what did he say? Forgive them, Father. They know not what they do, right? They know not what they do. That doesn't mean that if Jesus suddenly got off the cross, that he would invite those people to hang out with a bunch of little kids if they had just, slammed his wrist with 9-inch nails, right? That's not what that's saying. But forgive them, right? Forgive people. But part of forgiving people is creating a new environment and a new life where you have boundaries and standards for yourself about what you're going to allow and what you're going to tell to get the hell out, right? And sometimes, yeah, we got to get to that spot of that balance where we're okay, right? But we're also telling somebody, hey, no, not anymore. This isn't okay anymore. Not a single other time is it okay. You've had your chance, right? I'm sorry. No, sorry. I'm glad you're sorry. Don't do it again to anybody else, right? Maybe in 5 years we can talk, right? There's a power in getting to a spot like that, a space like that, where you get out that old energy that you shouldn't have there anyways, and you invite this pleasant, beautiful energy into your life. Yeah, boundaries, standards, rules, right? Boundaries, standards, and rules. And boundaries, they kind of work like this. When somebody crosses the boundary, right, and if let's say they don't know it's a boundary, well, then you let them know. And then if they know and they're crossing it just to walk all over you, right, well, that's a great time to say, see you later, right? I don't need you in my life. I want you to remember this, right? That person that you think that you need, right? If they're a good person, okay, you need to go to a space where you want them in your life if they're a good person because you like them and you like having them there, but you don't need them, right? Because if they leave, you're going to be okay, right? And why do you want to be like that? Because if you're attached to somebody in particular, people get attached. People that get very attached, like myself, I'm a high attachment type. What happens is you get very attached to everyone. If you're just around them, you get attached. And that might be a person that it's better to cut the attachments with because, no, you don't need them. If somebody's like, oh, I'm the most valuable person that's ever come around, you need me for this and that, and you're basically trying to get rid of this person, they're just using some sort of manipulation on you. No, you actually don't, right? Maybe they were providing some kind of value, but you can get somebody else to provide that kind of value, right? You don't need to be in any abusive circumstances. You don't need to be surrounded by people that are not telling you the truth, right? If you notice somebody that's not telling you the truth and they're lying right to your face and they're caught red-handed and they won't just admit it, you know what I mean? Or they won't just apologize and then, they say, hey, you know what, you're right, I do that. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to commit to an action plan and I'm going to go get some help for that, right? I do want to be your friend and I realized I messed up. And I'm willing to work to mess it up. Can I rebuild your trust over time? You'd be like, well, yeah. If you really go work on it, what's your actual action plan? Why don't you go through 3 months of therapy and then come talk to me again? You know what I mean? Make them go do it. You don't need assholes in your life. You don't need jerks. You don't need abusive people. You need awesome people that are going to treat each other well. Or you want to hang out with that person and you want to be around them because they're rad to be around, right? And is this resonating with you? Is this helping you in some way? I hope that it's actually helping you in some way because I want you to think about it for a minute. Close your eyes and just ask yourself, is there somebody in my life that I should totally eliminate and never have contact with again? Right? Did somebody pop up? I mean, if somebody popped up into your mind and you've been thinking about that for a long time, I mean, maybe you should actually do that, right? You don't need people in your life who are using you, who use your relationships, who lie to you and other people, who manipulate others for money and power, right? You want to pick up a handbook of things that are not fun to be around very much. I mean, The 48 Laws of Power is a fantastic book. I really did enjoy reading it. It taught me a lot about, what I don't really want to be around so much in my life. Because really what I want to be around is I want to be around people that are moving on. I want to be around people that have dreams, even if they're not accomplishing them yet. That's fine. I don't care if somebody's accomplishing their dreams yet, but I care that they have them, or that they're willing to have them and move on and to create them, right? Now, in my very inner circle of the people very close to me, I want people around me that have goals and that have ambitions and that have dreams and that have stuff that they're working on creating, right? Why? Because that's the kind of people I resonate with. I resonate with people that they want to create a better life than they've ever had in the past. I resonate with people that are honest to themselves and others. I resonate with people that tell the truth, especially if they're confronted. But even when they're not confronted, you don't need to confront them too often because they're just good all around, salt of the earth kind of people. I resonate with that kind of person because I know that if I bring that person around somebody else that I love, they're going to be a net positive, a net value to the overall relationship. That's who I want to be around. I want to be around people that I can sit down and have deep conversations with, you know what I mean? Who I can invite into my house, and I don't have to hide my keys when I'm not around because I don't think that person is going to steal something and run off with it. I don't want that kind of person around my house, right? I don't want to be in a relationship. Let me give some examples of things I don't want in relationships, right? I wouldn't want to be in a relationship with somebody where I can't give them access to the bank accounts, because I'm afraid they're going to steal all of the money, right? I have been in relationships like that, where I've been in relationships where I've had people that if I give them access to the bank account, they spend it all to zero, right? No matter how much is in there. There could be $50,000 in there or $200,000 and they spend it to zero. Like it could be days, you know what I mean? You could, trust me, you can spend $200,000 in days if you try. Just go down to the Ferrari dealership. You do it in 20 minutes, right? You don't want to be in relationships where you got to lock people out of your bank accounts because they're such an asshole that they can't respect budgets, right? This is, sometimes people steal your energy. Do you want to be around somebody that steals your energy? Now, there's a difference between stealing your energy and somebody who you get tired with passionately, right? That's okay. But I'm talking about all they do is drag you down and they make you feel like an asshole, even when you're not. You didn't really do anything and they're chewing you out and you're like, what are you chewing me out for? And you're just sitting there and they're draining you of life by being around them, making you feel bad about who you are in their inside because for some crazy reason, that's how they get up. They're a vampire. They're sucking your blood so that they have more power. They're sticking their teeth into your neck, just dragging the blood out because that makes them live forever. They get this eternal rise out of making you feel bad. You don't want people in your life like that. What a bunch of fucking assholes. No offense, right? If you've been like that in the past, right, just change it. But what a bunch of assholes. I'm just going to drain your life to sustain my own life. You know what I mean? You want people, we call it high karma relationships, right? So high karma relationships is you give value and they give value back, right? And they give value and you give value back. This is like a high karma relationship. Someone that's going to come, they're going to listen to you when you need it, and you'll listen to them when they need it, right? You want to be around people that have characteristics that you look up to, right? You want to be around people that they're never going to do you wrong, right? And even if they do you wrong on accident, they're going to fix it, right? They're going to make it right. Now, there are people like that too. Look, everyone makes mistakes. Everybody on the earth, right? I've never met a person in my life that doesn't make any mistakes ever. Everybody that I've met makes tons of mistakes. There's times when they do things that are out of line with their own values. There's never a person I've ever met that has never done that ever in their life. There's never a person that I've ever met that has never even a single time in their life ever said anything dishonest. Never met a person, right? There's never been a person that's never done anything too selfish at the expense of others, right? I've never met a person that's in their life, they've never done it, right? But there's a difference between like never, there's a difference between like never doing it, right? And but you do it, you make mistakes, and then doing it on purpose to hurt people, to get something, to get power, to get money at the expense of other people in low karma business, low karma transactions, low karma relationships that are just dishonest and sour at the core. There's a massive difference, right? And, in my life, I had to actually, maybe it was because when I was a kid, I wasn't very attentive. I was very ADD when I was a kid. And I say was because I don't think that I'm ADD anymore. Although sometimes, I kind of go off in my own universe. It's definitely not low attention. I have a very high attention capacity. But when I was a kid, I was, I didn't read tons of books and things like this. And I was a little space cadet. So maybe, and I grew up in this perfect family, so maybe I was a little bit naive. I was actually talking to one of my best friends from youth, this guy named Shannon. We had some fun. This guy, he's fantastic. Shannon Anderson III is his name. He's a philosopher, and so Shannon, I knew him ever since. I think I met Shannon when I was 12 or 13 years old, and we were like best friends for years. You know what I mean? And he was talking to me about that. He was like, yeah, when we were kids, he's like, I don't want to say it. He says, I was like, just say it, dude. He's like, well, you were like a little naive sometimes. And I was like, well, tell me about some situations. So he brought up some situations where I'd just go walk up and start talking to somebody that really, you could just kind of look at them from 50 yards away, and they ooze evil. You know what I mean? And it's like they're standing in a spot that they're kind of looking creepy over there in the corner, and it's just like they got that weird energy, like it's like a ball of evil surrounding them. I just walk up, hey, how's it going, man? Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, this is real shit. Yeah, I don't know, you know what I mean? It's like, you shouldn't even talk to that person. You know what I mean? Just if you see him, just continue walking by. Right? But this is why it's so important to guard your circle, because your circle is your life, right? Have you ever been in a relationship where you just know that relationship, there was something wrong with it, or there was a massive signal that there's something wrong? Like the person just let me give you an example that I've seen, right? The person just goes totally psycho for no reason, with no cause whatsoever, in a really damaging way, and then goes back to normal, and it's almost like it never happened. You know what I mean? But there's no reason for it, and it was too psycho, it was damaging. Have you ever been around something like that? If you've been in some relationships, you'll eventually, if you have dated a lot, you probably have met somebody like that, right? Well, the right thing to do if you run into that, and I'm not talking about, if you're a dude, I'm not talking about women, for example, that are a little emotional around certain times or anything like that, which is normal, right? What I'm talking about is psycho. Is they do something and you're like, what the fuck, man? What just happened? What kind of parallel universe? So what a normal person does, who has some sort of social aptitude, is they either gently or directly just stop hanging around that person right then, the very first time that it happens, because it's a massive signal, right? There's like a signal that inside of this person, there's this dark, hollow undercurrent of destruction in there, right? That will come out at any time, around any group of people, for any reason or no reason whatsoever, damaging anybody in the way of the tornado of destruction, including their friends, their spouses, their children, people that you love. They'll argue with you in public. They'll yell at you. They'll get revenge. No. You don't want somebody like that around you. You don't want somebody like that in your life. They're like that because that's how they want to be, and until they change, you shouldn't have them back. And there's certain kinds of things that are not easy to change. You can change it. Look, if there's not a physical impediment to changing, you can change basically anything. And some physical impediments you can change. You know, like if you lose a leg, you can get a prosthesis at the moment. Maybe in 20 years you'll be able to grow a new limb with technology, and then they'll surgically enhance it, and you need to learn how to move it on, right? There's things that can even handle personal impediments. And I believe occasionally, very occasionally, miracles happen that can't be explained, that I've seen miracles. I've seen real miracles in my life multiple times. I wouldn't say many times because it's not like real miracles happen every day. But I've seen weird stuff. People that are having heart attacks just suddenly after being prayed for, like stand up and walk away. And I did that one time when I was on the beach. This is a true story. I'll tell you a true story, right? I was on the beach in Jaco, Costa Rica one weekend, and I was running, because if I ever go to that beach, I like to run all the way down to one end, down to the other, and then back. It's like about an hour-long run, however long that is. I think it's like 10 kilometers or something, going all the way down to the end, down to the other end, then back to the center. And so anyway, I was staying at this place, and then I just got back to this hotel that I was staying in. And then I get back, and I stop right where I was going to do yoga before going into my my hotel. Anyway, I stopped, and just as I stopped, I can't even do it. Hold on, let me see if I can do it. This guy, he's walking with his friend, and he goes like this, like freezes. I've never seen anything like this, right? And then he just flops in like a tense, like this, like just his whole body just goes, and he's like this on his side, like convulsing, right? And I walked up to his friend, because it didn't look like a seizure. It looked like something weird. It looked like a heart attack or like something weird like this, right? And I ran up, and then I look at his friend, and I say, "Is this normal?" And he looked just terrified, and he's like this, right? Because it looks like his friend's about to die. You know what I mean? So anyways, this is a true story. Like sometimes what happens is you just have this like feeling come over you, you know what I mean? And I grew up in like a house with like a lot of faith in it, you know, like I have some very strange stories from my youth, from miracles that happened in my house, but like that's for another day, right? So in any case, what happens is that this guy's in convulsions. This is all very quick, like within 10 seconds. And I say, "Is it okay if I pray for your friend?" And the guy says, "Yeah." And then I closed my eyes, I kneeled down, put my hand on his head, and I said, "In the name of Jesus, I command you to live in 30 seconds. And then I stood up and I said, "He'll be fine." I counted from 1 to 30, and in the 30th second, he stopped convulsing, stood up, and he was fine. Right? So I've seen miracles, right? I've seen miracles in my life. And like, somebody could question that story, or they say, well, whatever. But I saw it. It happened, right? Stuff like that has happened to me multiple times. I don't think like I could walk into a hospital and do that. But in that moment, something came over me and that happened. That did happen, right? I don't think I'm a super righteous person or whatever, but that did happen. It was a true story, right? So in any case, you know, miracles can happen with people, right? But the thing is that you can't force someone. There's an old saying that says you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Right? If someone wants to be an evil, conniving asshole, they're just going to continue doing it no matter what you do or say. You can try once, but if they're not ready to receive it, get that person away from everybody that you know. Get them away. Right? You don't want that person around people that you care about, because if you've seen them harm other people, they're going to harm your people. And you don't want that to happen. You don't want it to happen, because you got to love the people that you're around enough to get the people that you don't. Hey, what's up, Asif? Pakistan, that's an interesting place to be a Christian, by the way. Are you even allowed to be a Christian in Pakistan? Are you even allowed? I don't even know if that's allowed there. I'm not familiar enough with Pakistan. I was just looking at Pakistan on a map just earlier today, actually, and I was looking at that whole area. Very fascinating area over there. I don't know if I would visit there. But actually those countries, those Islamic countries, are generally they're generally safe in certain ways. You know what I mean? Like you're less likely to get murdered or raped or something in those countries than you are actually in America. America actually is way more violent than places like, if you look at the Middle East where everybody thinks it's like the most violent places ever, actually, this is totally off topic, right? But if you actually, it's very interesting, right? If people in the United States are like, oh, they're so violent in Iran and Iraq and all these places, because of course we see the drama on TV. But if you actually look at the violence and you look at the stats, America is way more violent. It's not even close, right? Like way more rapes, way more murders, way more armed robberies. You know what I mean? Like, so that kind of thing. But they maybe have the occasional crazy explosion or war or whatever. You know, there's a lot of conflict in that area. So I don't want to judge too fiercely, you know. But you know, Costa Rica is more violent too. It's a very violent place here. You know, we're worse than the United States. The United States is much worse than the Middle East. Much worse. If you look at, seriously, you got to look this up. It kind of like changes your perspective. This is a totally off on a different tangent on what people tell you, because I used to think that it was so violent in all these, for example, in all these Islamic countries. I was like, these places are such violent places because this is what you hear, the Islamic terrorists, you know, the people on TV. But then one day I was just researching like murder rates in various countries and things like this, and like, it's like, I can't remember exactly what it is. I think it's like every year, something in Costa Rica, it's like 12 and 100,000 people get murdered in Costa Rica. In America, it's something like 5 or 6 and 100,000 people get murdered every year. And then in like Middle Eastern Muslim countries, the places you think are the most violent places in the world, it's like 1.5 or 2 out of 100,000. So it's like a third of America and a sixth of where I live. You know what I mean? So actually, it's like, you know, we have like totally different ideas about what's going on in the world. Actually, the best area is probably Japan. Japan has a very low violence rate. If you ever want to go to a very safe area where people are very depressed, but it's still very safe, Japan is actually quite safe. Very, very, very rare that murders happens in Japan because people are actually honorable in Japan. You know what I mean? Which flies in the face again of a lot of these norms that we think, where we think that, oh, the Christian country should be the most safe. No, it's not. You know what I mean? Go to Japan. They're Buddhists. You know what I mean? They're way more safe than America. Anyway, that was off on a tangent. I obviously believe in Jesus, you know, what I said, but like, you know, the thing is about life. So a life, again, I did go off on a tangent off the subject there. It's about having, you know, the good life, having the good life. Like how would you define the good life for yourself? You know, would you define the good life of just having love in your life, being rich, having good people around you, you know, having a great life for your kids, you know, like having a great network marketing business, for example, that, check out the city lights back there. That's in the background. I had a boring background, but this one's I really love this view in this place that I'm in right now. Anyway, I'm going to go sit back down in my couch. It's awful lighting right now because I have my lights on or whatever, and awful camera color and everything with my phone. You know what I mean? But in any case, like what is the good life for you? Okay. Well, what you want is, first it starts with like getting that clearly defined, right? Getting the good life clearly defined. Getting the good life, what it is for you, like defining it, defining what it is and what it's not, so you can have some sort of serenity. Okay, right? Serenity. However, now how would you define serenity, right? So the good life is serenity. Okay, how would you define serenity? And then look at what you want in your life and look at what you don't want in your life, right? Okay, you say, I want to make money. Okay, well, what are you not willing to do? What are you not willing to give up even for money? That's a good question, isn't it? Right? Well, so you could ask yourself this, right? This would be really, hey, what's up, Manny? What's up, Manny? So this is a good question to ask yourself. Like, okay, so you want a lot of money, right? Well, what are you not willing to give up for money? Because whatever that is important. Like, I think most people, for example, in the world wouldn't give their kids up for money. There are some that would. That's scary, but they're out there. There's people that have, and there's people that would, and there's people that do. But you wouldn't do that, right? So I think most people in the world would be like, well, I'm not going to give up my kids for money. That's obvious because it's not worth it. I don't care if you give me, you know, $100 billion if it's going to hurt my kid, my son, Gabriel, right? I wouldn't take it. I'd be like, you know what? No, I don't want your $100 billion, right? Can I have 100 billion in order to hurt your son? No, but you can die, right? And so there's things that a good person would never do under any circumstances, you know, even for money. right? So what are some other things that you're not willing to do? Okay, here's a good question, okay? Would you be willing to lie, cheat, or steal for $100, right? If the answer is yes, you need a value checkup, man. You know what I mean? Like, I'd be willing to lie, cheat, or steal for $100. There's something wrong. That's now. But here's where it gets fishy, right? Would you be willing to lie, steal, or deceive someone, right, for $1,000? All right, 10,000, 100,000, $1 million. Would you lie, steal, or hurt someone for $1 million? What about 10 million? And some of you, then around the, maybe it was 10,000. Some of you have already been like, well, it depends on how badly do I have to hurt them? Could I make it up to them later? You know what I mean? Like, you're already in your head tossing around the different plans on how you could make this happen and kind of make it back and kind of fix it and kind of make it right. I'd lie, you know what I mean? It's a better place, though, where you're not willing to move on your values for any amount of money. Because money is not a good value, right? I'm telling you, it's a better place. Now, there might be some sort of scenario, though, where you would have to get creative. And this is where you get into really creative discussions. Like, let me give you an example. Well, if you turn down $1 billion because you don't want to lie to your neighbor about something stupid, right? Well, you can take the $1 billion and, give it to kids in Africa. So then there's an issue where you're like, am I hurting more people by not doing it, right? And then you're getting into the really interesting place when you're really thinking about ethics, because there are places where maybe not everything is totally cut and dry. Or, for example, let's say you're a war general, right? And you have to lie in order to protect your soldiers, right? Or something like this, right? So there is... or your country, you've got to make something up to the enemy, right? So there is definitely, somebody's like 10 million, right? 10 million, I'm going to make it work, you know what I mean? Yeah, okay, I'll hurt that person, but I'm going to go take him to the hospital afterwards and buy him, I'll buy him a new Ferrari, you know what I mean? So there's definitely, this is where you got to define this stuff. You got to know what you're not willing to do. But there's certain things that you never want to move on. Like, you should never hurt your kids for any amount of money. It's not worth it. And so if you know what you're not willing to do, that you should guide your behavior. You should guide your behavior by the right things, right? You should guide your behavior by the right things, and that's your principles, your values, your vision, right? This kind of thing. This is how you should guide your behavior. Right? And if something is contrary to that stuff, it's better to learn to just say no to the wrong things. Say no to the wrong people. Say no to the wrong energy. You don't need that person. You can find someone else. Right? You can find someone else who's going to be good to you. You can find somebody else who's going to give you a good experience of life, and give you a good experience of love, and give you a good experience of safety, right? No, you don't need them, right? You know about it. So Carolyn, no amount of money will make me hurt people. This is good, right? And there's a good saying, I would call it great, that I think is one of the best sayings that I've ever heard. And this is one of those moments, right? And that is to say, what doth it profit a man if he gain the whole world but loses his soul? Ouch. I mean, if that doesn't, slaps people in the face in the modern age, I don't know what it does. Because we got to remember, like, let me be real with you for a moment, okay? Let me be real. Just for one moment, let's get into some reality. If we haven't checked into reality tonight at all on this live, let's get into some reality. What What do you have in your life, or what are you doing in your life right now that is hurting you? And why is it there still? When you know. This could be a lot of things to a lot of different people. For example, maybe you walk up before you go to bed tonight, you take your shirt off, and you look in the mirror, and you just see someone too fat. Somebody just jumped off the live, right? They're like, hey, wait a second, we were talking about good people, right? Maybe it's somebody in your life that really has caused you a dark amount of harm. Like they've really hurt you bad. On purpose, not on accident. Not something that they did and they're trying to make up. And even that, you got to be careful with that, because if you start allowing that again and again and again and again, you're sending signals. But they really, really have just caused damage. Damage that, truthfully, they probably can't fix anyways. They probably don't even have the ability to fix it. But even if they do, they won't. Who do you have? Right? What's going on in your own life that you want to create a better experience for you and the people that you love? Right? Somebody said, I won't hurt anybody for any amount of money. What doth it profit a man if he gain the whole world but loses his soul? I think that's a good one. And there was something else I was going to say, but it was like a train car, you know what I mean? It like came, stopped at the station. I opened my mouth to introduce it, and then it went right over there, you know what I mean? Like as I was thinking about it, it came into the noggin, and it went out of the noggin, and it went that way, you know? But there are people that, you know, let's be real about life for a moment here. There's good and evil in the world. There's good and evil. And one of the good things about the world, I think, the good, right, is that most people are good people. Most. Like, and by good people, I mean that they do other people positive most of the time to the best of their ability. And I think most people are good. I don't think most people are evil. I don't think that most people are demented. I don't think that most people are psychopaths and sociopaths. It's less of the population. It's not more, right? Most people who are in relationships are loyal, right? Most people don't survive by being a liar, by cheating, by stealing. Most people don't do these kinds of things. Most, right? Most people try to be good. Not everybody, but most. And this is a redeeming quality of the world. Most people want to be good. However, even though they want to be good, you got to be conscious about what you want, what you don't want, and define it clearly so you know. And then what aren't you willing to do in order to be able to get it? Where won't you budge on? What won't you move on? Right? Like at this point in my life, there's just certain things that I won't budge on anymore with people. If somebody's a liar with me and I see him lying with other people, I don't want him around at all. You know what I mean? I don't want to introduce him to my dad, my mom, my friends, my son. I don't want him around at all. I don't care what their reason is. I don't care what their excuse is. I don't care why they're doing it. I don't care how they're justifying it, because they're so fantastic at justifying it. I don't care if somebody's going to be a liar, they can go, right? I don't care. I don't care if it hurts them. See ya. You know what I mean? Because I don't want liars around, right? That's one thing for me. Another thing is abuse. Liars and abuse. And if you're not familiar with how people abuse, if you're ever going to be influential, you need to look it up. Hey, dude, Isaac Blanco, bro. What an awesome dude. That's an awesome dude I want to be around, right? There's plenty of them on here, right? But like, I love Isaac Blanco. He's got like this big YouTube channel in Spanish and everything like that, and his videos are dope. He helped me make a video back in the day for this. What was that? I was going to do some sort of Kung Fu MLM. Like, what was it I was going to do that I never did? And I was like, no. That actually was not such a bad idea. But, what is... maybe I will do that. Anyway, so I don't want those people around. I don't want thieves around, right? Well, why? Why wouldn't you want them around? Well, they're not going to steal from you. They're your friend, right? Right? So no. Well, it's not just that they steal from you. A thief will steal from anyone they can steal from and get away with it. That's what thieves do, right? If this is the truth, right? If you had $10 million in gold, and I was very broke, and you invited me into your house, and it was sitting on the table with your doors open, and you're like, Dave, I'm going to go, to work. I'll be back in 8 hours. I wouldn't take 10 cents. Right? It's not mine. Right? It's not mine. It doesn't belong to me. Right? That might not be a bad idea, Isaac. We'll talk about that, right? That's the point, right? So there's a lot of people that will. They'll take as much as they possibly can. So the thing is that what a thief does is thieves steal whenever they can, from whoever they can get it from, for whatever reason that they can make up. And like they lie to everyone else, they're also going to lie to you if they feel like they can take advantage of it, get away with it, and you won't notice. And if they tell you something else, but you see them doing it with other people, they will do it to you the second you're not looking, or if they perceive that you're too stupid to notice. They will. Right? Because they're lying to you, just like they lie to others. Right? So liars, thieves, right? People that are abusive. I don't care to have these people around in my life ever again. I would rather have no friends and be by myself meditating under a tree than be around liars, thieves, and abusers and have them be my only friends. I would rather be alone. But the great thing is in life, you don't need to be alone, right? If you ever are in a place where, let's say you're working a job and your boss is just doing things that are really unethical, and you walk away, there's a million companies you can work for. You don't need that job. You don't need that position, right? You need to go and do what you know is right. You don't need that opportunity. You don't need that old dark relationship that is like a sore that you can't get rid of, And it's really like that because you've known for a long time that it's time to do something new in your life with people that don't drain your life away, with people that give you life, with people that bring peace and power to your life, with people that have vision, right? Yeah, there we go, right? So Isaac, the 15K formula changed your life. Yeah, I'm grateful I met you too, Isaac. Yeah, he was a fantastic guy. I met you out in, San Diego, right in California when I was going through a little bit of a rough time. He was out there and he hung out with me all day, back when you're still making videos. I mean, this guy's like turned his whole life into a prosperity machine, And so in any case, that's me. You do you. That's the beautiful thing about life. You can make your own decisions, but you don't have to stay stuck. And back to the miracles for a moment. Yes, I believe in miracles, and I believe anybody can change. But sometimes people don't change until something really bad happens as a consequence of what they do. And those really bad things are things you might not want to be around. And it might involve you, right? What are some of the things that might happen? Well, if somebody it continues to do things that are very evil, all sorts of shit starts going wrong, right? People could get hurt. Violence could break out. They say that the path of drugs leads to jail, death, institutions, things like this, right? Now, it probably depends on what people are doing, but that's somewhat true. Think about somebody, if you know anybody that's been addicted to heroin, for example. and where that's led. I know people that have been addicted to heroin, and I know what's happened to them from that, right? That's not an easy thing. I've seen people who are who are coming out of alcohol and they're just like, they're shaking because they can't, people can die quitting alcohol if they quit too quickly, if they're really alcoholic, right? So it's true. You can get very messed up from really, 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 really dangerous things. And you got to be careful with that, right? Oh, I don't know how I've been live, Marissa, but it'll be, the recording will go up whenever I'm done. But the point with this, right, is there's a point where you just say, I got to let it happen. I got to let it happen. The person doesn't want help. They don't want me to help them. If you have a very nurturing personality, that can be really hard because you really want to help so bad. But if you do, you drag everyone you love into endless turmoil that you don't need and deserve, right? So anyway, I've been on this ranting. It's not really a rant, more of a discussion about life and about creating a life full of amazing people that are moving on, doing really amazing things, that treat other people really well and do things to their best interest because they've got a servant heart. Let me tell you something about love and power, right? Oh, I remember what I was going to say. So I'm going to talk about it now. That just came, hopefully it doesn't leave, earlier. I want you to be real about something for a second. When we're talking about money, let's be real. Let's think about death and life, regardless of what your beliefs are with death. Who on the earth is likely to remember who you are 5 years after you die? Your family, kids. You can give me some ideas in the comments too if you want, if you feel like it, right? Family, kids, grandkids that knew you, right? People that you worked with for a very long time. Most other people who you even have maybe impacted might remember you if you came up in a discussion where you're like, oh, you remember that? You remember that guy? You remember that gal? Who's going to remember you in 50 years? This is where it starts to get you could be like, I was having this discussion with somebody on, 50 years, your loved ones might, very good chance they won't be around, most of them anyway, right? Unless, we invent immortality. But who's going to remember you in 50 years, right? Okay, some people remember you. This is where it starts to get what am I really doing with my life? Right? But also, where's your money going to be? Where's your money going to be 10 years after you die? Well, if you really plan your life well and you save for a long time and invest very carefully and you've got good systems in place, and whoever inherits it doesn't just whittle it down to nothing in 2 minutes from abusive living, well, maybe your wealth could last a while. There's families where wealth has lasted hundreds of years. Not many. Okay, who's going to remember who you are in 100 years? Where's your money going to be in 100 years? Who's going to remember who you are in 200 years? Where's your money going to be in 200 years? Who's going to remember who you are in 500 years? Where's your money going to be in 500 years? Now, probably around the time we got to 50 years after your death, you already realized that you're not doing anything meaningful in life at all. Because the universe doesn't care. The Earth will still be spinning around the sun. The sun is still going to be spinning around the Milky Way. The Milky Way is still going to be traveling towards the Great Attractor. And billions of new people will be born and die. Wars will happen and they'll cease. And the new generation probably still won't read history books. And people probably won't remember your name at all. Probably they won't. There's the chances of people remembering who you are at all, is 1 in 100 million. Probably nobody will remember who you are, right? Now, there's other ways you can live on, but this is more than likely. Let's give a statistical likelihood. I was talking to somebody on Facebook the other day, and I paused for whatever reason, right? So I was talking to somebody on Facebook the other day, and they were talking. They're like, you know what? You know who couldn't sell worse shit in history? He's like, Jesus and Buddha. I was like, what are you talking about? Like we still remember their names. You know what I mean? Like there's nobody in the Western world that has never heard of Jesus or Buddha, or Muhammad, right? We've all heard of Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, right? But who's going to remember who a marketer is in even 50 years after they die, right? Nobody. Let's take the most famous person, let's take famous people, right? Like Frank Kern, right? Frank Kern is super famous. I've been super famous at a certain point. There was a point where I was about as popular as Andrew Tate is today. You know what I mean? I think that'll probably happen to me again at some point in the future, but maybe not for a little while, you know what I mean? But I can recognize that I'm not in that position right now. But there's a point where every street I walked down, somebody knew who I was, right? But if I died, who would remember who I was in 100 years from what I did? Nobody. You know what I mean? Nobody. Who's going to remember who Frank Kern is in 200 years? Frank Kern, by the way, if you see this is not making fun of you, right? There was a time I made a video that was very much making fun of Frank Kern, and he called me. It was very funny. It's a conversation for another day. But who's going to remember Frank Kern? Nobody. Who's going to remember Ryan Dice? Nobody. Some of you don't even know who he is, right? Who's going to remember Russell Brunson? The likelihood, the likelihood of anybody knowing who Russell Brunson is 100 years from now, Russell, if you see this, you can pitch in. The likelihood of that, of anyone even knowing who he was at all, is almost zero, right? You question it? Okay, who was the one that started the AT&T Corporation? That's over 100 years old. Right? Do you remember? I mean, they were at one point the richest company in the world. Did you know that? Do you know AT&T was richer than all the other companies in the world, and they had to have a monopoly broken up? I mean, you probably didn't even know that. But do you even know who started it? Right? You don't know, right? Who was the first president of the United States, right? People get it mixed up between Benjamin Franklin and George Washington. It was George Washington, by the way. But people think that it's Benjamin Franklin a lot of the time, right? He was never a president, right? But you do remember Benjamin Franklin. Who else do you remember around the era of Benjamin Franklin? You might remember one or two of the founding fathers, and you might not have even known that any of those people were in the founding fathers, because what happens is people are going to forget you. They're going to forget everything that you do. All your money is going to be forgotten and recycled into the universe, right? You're not going to leave the earth with all of your money. So what's the point? The point is creating a life that leaves the world better than you found it, right? That's a good point. Yeah, I got cut off for a minute, Marissa. Leaving the world better than you found it so the future generations of the world live in a better way. Treating the people around you with respect and honor. Treating people around you with love and doing things that are the right thing to do. Jesus, we talk about Jesus in history, right? People they take for granted that time of history and how amazing that actually was. So you have the itinerant preacher walking around the streets, who how many sermons did he really even give that are written down? 5 or something? I mean, it's not very many. Everybody, the Sermon on the Mount, they might know, but they don't really even know it. It's 5 words. This still got 3 billion followers, right? 2,000 years later, right? But he was only teaching for 3 years. And then it ended with him being nailed to a cross, right? That's how his life ended. He got nailed to a cross. And then within 300 years, his movement controlled the entire world. If that's not a flip and a twist of fate in history, I don't know what is, right? So stuff can happen and you can impact the world. And you can think about something to build a legacy with. But the reality is, the stark reality is, the likelihood of anybody remembering you at all, ever, 100 or 200 years from now, it's 1 in 100 million, 1 in a billion, something like that. It's really low. So that being said, does your money really matter that much? You're not going to take it with you anyway, right? Depending on your version of the afterlife, whether it's an afterlife or none, you might say, well, I'm going to come back in another life. And I'll say, well, in that life, you're going to start out broke too. Probably, right? And then in another version, right? Yeah, it is crazy with Jesus, right? He's built a really big movement in a few years, right? So that's one version of reality, right? where you come back into the world, and then you're born again to resolve all of your past karma, and then all the bad stuff that you do, you have to live it from other people in this next one, right? And then the other version is as well, we go to heaven or hell or whatever, and then we get a reward based on what we do. But that reward is not based on what you have here. It's not based on any of that, right? It's like how you live is your reward, like how you treated other people. Many who are first will be last, and many of the last will be first, right? This is the kind of thing that really matters, right? And then the other version is nothing happens. You're dead, right? You just die. You're gone, right? And then people fear death, but it's not really necessarily something to fear, because if that really happens and you're just dead and you cease to exist, and that's what goes on after death, well, first of all, I don't believe that. The reason I don't believe that is because if that was true, I think the universe would have no purpose at all. And in my opinion is that if the universe had no purpose at all, it wouldn't exist, right? Because why does the universe exist? It exists for some sort of a purpose, or it wouldn't, right? And you say, well, why wouldn't it exist? Why would the universe not exist if there wasn't a purpose behind it? It's really obvious. Because if you can't answer the question, why isn't there nothing, right? Like most of us, that's a really good question. I actually think that that's a better question than a question almost anybody talks about in any scenario, right? Why does a universe exist versus there being nothing? So if there's no afterlife, there's no purpose to existence, because you're just blotted out. Nobody even remembers your name. And even the people on earth, right, who we remember them now, they won't remember them 1,000 years from now. They'll be completely unimportant. 1,000 years from now, the likelihood of the United States of America even existing at all is almost zero. Like even existing, like as a country. Right? Do you realize that? Like everybody's like so drama about Donald Trump, whatever. Like, okay, all right, Donald Trump, I like Donald Trump, right? But at the same time, there's a lot of drama. But the reality, the likelihood of anybody remembering who he is in 1,000 years is almost zero. Like even in 20 years after he's gone, people won't even really. Do you remember who was president in 1942? Okay, who was president in 1960? Who was president in the year 1900? Right? Now, if you say who was you'd remember Abraham Lincoln and the Emancipation Proclamation and all that stuff, because that's something that's, something that really critical. You might know who George Washington is, right? Okay, who was the king of France 300 years ago? Do you know? No? All right. Yeah, you just go back and back and back. Nobody remembers anything, right? So the impact of what we do, right? The long-term impact of what we do, really, it's in how we make the world better than we found it, to where even when people don't remember who we are, the world is still a better place because we're here. And that's all about who you impact. And who you impact has everything to do with who's around you. So be careful. All right. Hey, Bob. Good seeing you. Anyway, guys, I got to go. All right. Have a good night. I'm going to sleep. Bye.